I think I started the company in 1996, and I rented the top floor of the building. I can't remember what the address is, but my old landlord was here in the audience. He drove me here. But I started here, it was just me, and I actually rented a lot of space, so it took me a while to fill it up. We used to hit golf balls around the office because it was just a lot of carpeting and not a lot going on. And I stayed out here until 2004, and when I moved east, we still just have the one office here in Newport Beach in the same building. But now we have 6, and the Newport Beach office, I think, is now larger than it was when I first left here. But a lot has happened to the U.S. economy since I first moved into the Newport Beach office. In fact, when I first moved in there, and I really started cold calling, looking for clients, the problem that I was warning people about back then was the bubble in the technology market, particularly in the internet stocks. I thought that it was going to end very badly, and I was warning a lot of people to get out of internet stocks. Most people didn't want to listen. Most people I called just hung up on me, or they argued with me. And that bubble burst in 2000, and I had expected a much more significant decline in the economy. I thought we were going to have a bigger recession than we actually had. I thought real estate prices would have actually started to fall back then, because I saw a lot of people were snapping up a lot of these new developments with some of the options. They were exercising their options on some of these startup companies, and they were going right and buying a condo, or a condo buying a home in one of these developments. And so I figured when you took all that option money away, when the NASDAQ imploded, that you'd see a pullback in real estate at the time, and we'd have a more meaningful recession than the one that actually occurred. And what happened was, instead of allowing that recession to take place, we had a big stimulus plan by Alan Greenspan and the newly elected President Bush. And so we never really got the big cleansing recession that I thought was going to be the natural consequence of all the misallocations that took place during the dot-com bubble. I mean, we really funded some crazy companies, and we made a lot of mistakes. We were drunk on cheap money, and we did a lot of stupid things, and we began to sober up in 2000, 2001. But instead of allowing the economy to correct itself, rebalance, reallocate all the assets, land, labor, and capital, the politicians decided that we needed economic stimulus, that we couldn't just sit back and do nothing, that we had to do something. And so Alan Greenspan, despite the fact that it was his cheap monetary policies that blew up the tech bubble, he decided that, well, we need more stimulus, and so he lowered interest rates down to 1%. And in doing that, he really prevented a more severe recession from taking place. And of course, everybody was very happy about that. The Fed kept interest rates down to 1% for a very long time. And that really ignited the housing bubble. And I was watching this bubble inflate from the house I was renting here in Orange County. And by 2004, I thought it was going to be a disaster. I mean, when I really saw what Greenspan was doing and the housing bubble that fell, this is the time period, and we are the biggest offenders. And you can also see a lot of the problems around the world of this system. Because in order for Americans to live beyond their means, somebody else somewhere is living beneath their means. In order for us to consume without producing, somebody is producing without consuming. And the people that are doing that are getting tired of it. It's no fun doing all the work. That's what we got. We got the people in China working hard, long days in factories so that we can consume stuff. But meanwhile, they're not consuming nearly as much because all the stuff that they made has been shipped over to America. And I get this argument all the time that, well, the Chinese need us. They have an export economy. What do you mean? It's like, you might as well say that the slaves needed their masters because, they had a slave economy. They don't need us. They're producing all the stuff. I mean, they don't need us to consume it. They're perfectly capable of consuming stuff themselves. But you got somebody in China who might be working all day in a factory making washing machines, and then he goes home and he washes his clothes, in a bucket, because he doesn't have a washing machine, and he hangs his stuff out to dry with paper, with clips. You think, is he doing that because he likes that? He doesn't want that washing machine? He's like, he's working all day building this machine. I don't know why these Americans want these washing machines. I mean, don't they know that you can wash your clothes in a bucket? Yes, of course they want that stuff. But, I mean, everybody wants stuff. And you hear that, that's what they're talking about now. The problem with our economy is we don't have enough demand. We have too much demand. That's the problem. We bought things we couldn't afford. Right? It's not a shortage of demand. It's a shortage of supply. We got to make stuff. Anybody can want things. I got my son just turned 9, and he has no problem wanting things. He wants most things that he sees. So, I don't have to stimulate that. The thing is, it's production. It's production that has to be stimulated. Somebody has to produce. In fact, that's where demand comes from. It comes from supply. It comes from production. I mean, nobody wanted an iPad until it was there. And if it wasn't there, it doesn't matter, if you wanted one, if it didn't exist, you couldn't have it. It had to be produced. And things are produced because of underconsumption, because of savings, because of investment. That's where it comes. They've got all that in China. They're producing all this stuff. If we weren't here, I mean, would you think the stuff would just be building up in warehouses and, nobody would use it because it's just piling up in these big warehouses? No, I mean, of course, the prices would come down and the Chinese would buy. That's what would happen. The Chinese economy would boom if they didn't export all their stuff to America, because the only reason that they're exporting is to import. That's why you export, because you're hoping to import something else. You don't export to build up foreign exchange, to have trillions of dollars building up in tall stacks that you could just, admire. I mean, you want stuff that you can actually use. You want consumer goods. You want the stuff that we have. But, the economists keep telling us, oh no, that's terrible. Because if what I'm saying is going to happen, prices are going to fall in China. Oh, we can't have that. That's deflation. That's terrible. How's that terrible? If things are too expensive and you can't afford it, and the price comes down and you can't afford it, why is that bad? Right? Our whole economy was built on deflation. We had deflation for 150 years until the Federal Reserve came around and ruined it all. But, I mean, think about the things that we have deflation in now. Right? We're falling prices. Computers, cell phones, television sets. Prices come down all the time. Doesn't mean, the economists tell us, well, if we have deflation, no one's going to buy anything. Well, that's nonsense. It's that if we have deflation, people will buy more. That's just basic logic. If prices come down, you buy more, not less. Anybody that has a little retail shop knows that. If you want to sell a lot of stuff, you have a sale. You don't mark prices up and expect people to come running to the store to buy. They want to buy it. They want to buy a discount. The first cell phone that came out, I remember the first handheld cell phones that were like this big, and they cost about $2,500. And that was real money back then in the 80s. How many people bought those things? Nobody bought it. Who could afford it? It was because the prices went down that people bought them. Imagine if they just went up. The government says it's better if prices. Well, what if now cell phones cost $10,000? How many people would own them? Nobody would have them. Same thing with, when the first plasma TV set came out. I remember they were like $10,000, $12,000. I didn't buy one. It wasn't until the price came down to about $1,500, I think, that I started to buy. So it was the falling prices that created demand. Yeah, was there somebody that bought it? Yeah, somebody bought it for $12,000 as a novelty. Some really rich guy wanted to impress his friends, and so he bought that expensive plasma TV set because he wanted to have it. He wanted to have what nobody else had. But by doing that, the TV companies made a little bit of money, and they were able to figure out how to produce more TV sets at a cheaper cost, and the cheaper they got, the more consumers they got. And now, of course, everybody is buying them because they're $500 or $600 a piece. Yet the companies are making more money selling them at $500 or $600 than they were when they were $12,000. Because costs have come down, and they make it up, and they also have the volume. So that's what would happen in China. They would have deflation. If they let their currency go up, the RMB would take off, prices would collapse in China, and the Chinese would have a booming economy. That's what awaits them when they stop propping up the dollar. But we've got everybody convinced that, oh no, that the key for the Chinese economy is to export to us. I mean,